Welcome to Heart of Entrepreneurship, where me, Jesse Pujji, and Dave Kashen talk about building businesses from a place of heart, from a place of love, from expansiveness, and we challenge the notion that success requires suffering.
Yeah,
All right.
let's do it.
All right, I'm going to start with a story that involves me and you. Um, so I think it was 2019, and we were coaching. And I asked you a question. I said, if you were to try to have the most impact on someone's life as a coach in the shortest period of time, what would you do? And your
Ooh.
answer was every person holds 1 to 3 really core beliefs. So I would quickly try to drill down by asking them what they fear and why they fear it, and just keep saying, why do you fear that? Why do you fear that? Which ultimately brings you down to someone's core thing.
Mm.
And then I would try to get them to see the opposite of that belief was just as true as the belief they held. Not to change it necessarily, but just to, once you see the opposite, you're like, oh, I guess mine can't be as true as I thought it was, when the opposite could also be true.
I was so wise back then. That was a good answer.
Well, yeah. And we did this exercise.
Mm.
And as we did it, we realized one of my core beliefs was money equals security or safety.
Mm.
And then we were in my office in San Francisco, and you were like, Jesse, can you see that there's people who have less money than you who are more safe than you? And I'm like, yes, intellectually I can. And you're like, will you
Who
give up?
feel more safe?
Yeah, who feel more safe. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, but he's like, can you see that you could lose all your money that you have and you would feel just as safe? And I was like, no, I can't. There's no way I
Mm.
can do that. And then we negotiated, and you got me to agree that incrementally more money than I had made up until that point would not make me feel more safe. And I could get on board with that. And I think generally that was actually pretty life changing for me. I've told people that story because there were so many ways I made decisions, which just the simple, really underneath the bottom of my operating system, core to my code, was more money will make me more safe. And it wasn't
Mm.
conscious at all. It was just this and that once that went away after that coaching, we did that coaching, it was like, oh, I could just think a little bit more clearly about what do I actually want if I've let go of that belief. Now, I would tell you that I still am probably not willing to do the other one, which you could lose it. But anyway, that's the story. So the topic of today, which I have not told Dave, as I like to do, is I want to talk about money.
Mm.
And
I wasn't sure if you were going to money or limiting beliefs. Both are fun. All
yeah,
right.
I think money, you and I both have our own interesting
Yeah.
relationships with it and attachments around it.
Yes.
Um, I think for most entrepreneurs, there's some who don't, it really doesn't, but they're very few and far between. Most, and rightly so. It's like, yeah, I want to do well, and I want to have freedom and all that stuff. And I mean, there's even a quote I sent a friend of mine today who was, he was going through one of the grind parts of entrepreneurship, and I sent him the quote that's, entrepreneurship is choosing to live your life a few years like most won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most can't, right? So there's even this if I
Yeah.
do it, then I'll be,
Yeah.
so I think this is
Freedom.
relevant to anyone, most people listening, and so I don't have any others. Well, I'm sure I'll have
I
lots of
like
questions,
it.
but that's the
Yeah.
starting point.
Well, and there's I'm forgetting his name now, but a guy we're wanting to bring on the podcast that had some tweet that was basically keep your chip on your shoulder until you've made it. Make sure not to let it go before that, which is kind of coming from that same place of
I mean, there's a saying: "Chips on shoulders, put chips in pockets."
yes.
So that's a
So
direct sort
the
of.
yeah relates, right? If money is safety, well, I bet I need my pain, my insecurity in order to drive me to get the money to be safe. Well, so much to say about money. Yeah, acknowledge what a challenge it's been for me over the years. I think for me, it's been more about, if you think about the big three sort of um, needs, or yeah, I guess needs that we often perceive as unmet, are security slash safety, uh, freedom, and worthiness. Or we
Hmm.
something that says security, control, approval. I'm using those synonymously. So I think people map money onto all three and vice versa. So mine, I think, was less about safety and more about freedom, and worthiness, and
Hmm.
with a heavy emphasis on worthiness.
Freedom is the parallel of control.
Yeah, it's like,
Okay.
yeah, when people say I want control, basically it's like I want to be able to do anything that I want, which is
Right.
freedom. I'm just putting those together.
Can
And
can we
approval and
sidebar for a
worthiness.
quick second on the security control and approval thing? Because I don't know that we've ever fully.
Sure. I mean, I learned this from the conscious leadership group that, we talked, I think we've talked a lot about above and below the line. Are you in a state of presence or are you in a state of threat? Well, the core three sort of aspects that tend to feel threatened for human beings are a sense of safety, right? That's sort of obvious, right? If there's danger, but it's even like safety slash security, and I think that's where it gets interesting because most of us don't really think that losing some money would mean I'm physically not safe, but my
Right.
sense of security, like this sense of like I'm okay, I'm going to be okay, my family's going to be okay. So
Right.
security.
And especially future preserved insecurity, I think, like, or like a lot when you're, oh my God, if this happens in the future, something bad. But yeah.
Totally. So that's security and safety. Number two is control or freedom. So, silly example is like the Wi-Fi goes out, and it's like, "Arr!" Like I had a plan. Something I was trying to do. I wanted to control life a certain way, and then it got thwarted. So that's a threat to my sense of control, right? And there's all version, there's lots and lots of setbacks and challenges that come up for humans, for founders in their sense of their ability to control and make what they want to have happen. And it correlates to freedom because it's sort of like if I could control life and make anything I wanted happen, then I'd be totally free. Is sort of
Hmm.
the myth, I'll say.
Yep.
And then the third is approval and worthiness. So approval tends to be a little more external seeking, like wanting validation, wanting external approval. Worthiness is sort of the internal version of it. They're highly related, like just a sense that I am worthy, I'm valuable as a human being. And
And there was a
mm,
period, by the way, where we were coaching. I want to say it was like 21 and 22, where every time we coach, I don't know if you did this on purpose or not. I think you did. It was like basically no matter what my issue was, we found how they fit into one of those three buckets.
yeah, that's right. I'd say which one, two, or three of these feel threatened by this situation. And it's a useful self-reflection to see, oh, yeah, this is threatening my sense of security or my sense of control or my sense of
Yeah.
approval.
It's also, I would also just add that one of the benefits I found of it is like, I think I think, did you say that? Like, people think they have like 100 different problems, but they kind of have like the same one problem or two or three problems. They just
Yes.
dress themselves up differently. And it was when we did it for a couple of years, it was like, oh, wow. No matter what I thought the issue, I don't know what to do next with my life. Should I raise, money or not raise money? Like, they were all variations on one of those three. And then it just became more easy for me from a self awareness to kind of go in the moment. I'm like, wait, which one? Like,
Yeah.
my wife
It's
just gave
it's
me a
like
funny look. What is that? That's not. It's not my wife gave me a funny look. It's like, oh, I'm feeling she's not approving of.
yeah, it's a way to like quickly boil it down to its essence. Like, what
Yeah.
is this really about for me? Okay, it's about my sense of security. It's about my sense of control. It's about my sense of approval. And to your point about one issue, it's really all about safety and security. It's
Yeah.
just that, like, especially when we were living in tribes, right? Like our ability, like if our safety was threatened, well, we needed to be able to control, right? Like and dominate and be the powerful one so that we didn't get killed. And then again, because we were in tribes, approval meant safety, right?
Yep.
If the tribe didn't like you and they kicked you out, you were dead. So they all ultimately stem out of
Right.
safety and security,
And
which
money,
makes
I think.
sense.
I guess we may say, coming back to money for a second, that you said money hits all three. I think maybe said differently. We use money as an object to create a feeling of insecurity, lack of control, or lack of approval for ourselves. We money is a commonly used prop.
Yes. To for your system to perceive threat.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean it's interesting if you just kind of get really simple for a second. What is money, right? Like we for a long time there was no money. There was nothing. There was trade. And then at some point, someone said, oh, what if we had like a third thing, like a currency that instead of having to find the person who needs their, mow lawn and match them with the person who needs their haircut, which is a very
Right.
hard permutation. What if we had this third thing that was like currency and I could give it to you to mow my lawn and then you could give it to someone else to cut your hair? Oh, that's a way more efficient system. I mean, we just made it up as a way to facilitate
Right.
exchange. And so this thing in some way, because it's made up, it's almost easier for us to just project all sorts of things onto it that it doesn't mean.
Right.
We give it meaning that it doesn't have.
Yep.
Now, I don't want to like pretend that it doesn't matter and doesn't affect these things because, gosh, if you need, a major, surgery and you have no insurance and no money, you might not be able to get it and your life might be at risk. You might die, whereas someone else who has lots of money might live. So there are very real ways that money can be a source of security and safety. Um, in some way, freedom, because obviously the set of things that you can do is greater when you have money, at least the set of things that cost money, right? Vacations and buying certain things, etc. Um, and then certainly we live in a society where people do tend to attribute worthiness to money. And so they do tend to approve of, I mean, sometimes they're jealous and disapprove, but tend to approve of people and ascribe more value. Oh, Elon Musk, oh my God, he's such a more valuable human than all the rest of us.
Right.
And so it's not like it's without connection to reality, but there's a way that we um, make it mean something bigger than what it actually means. Most of the time, that's not really what we're experiencing is like, oh, I'm scared. I don't have enough money to get a heart transplant if I need it.
Right.
It's more
Right.
this vague sense of like money equals security, and I can't feel. And I
Right.
think this is important because these are all really feelings that it boils down to. I can't feel safe unless and until I have a certain amount of money. And by the way, we've talked about this idea of like, hedonic treadmill, or we could maybe
Yeah.
create another version, like security treadmill,
Well,
right? It's
yeah.
like,
It's interesting. I mean, the approval, control, and security are things just to make sure, like, they're things that we tend to source from outside versus
that's a good,
inside, right? And then money in some ways is like the ultimate cheat and hack because it gives you all, you just said it gives you all three purportedly, right?
right,
And
right. Yeah. It's like this very tricky illusion that's very hard to see through because it does feel like money can give you security and freedom and worthiness. So it's like, wow, does it make sense how much we want it?
and almost, I
So
mean, just to pause there, I don't, is there anything else that gives you all, that has the, the reputation of giving you, like, you could have an attractive
maybe
spouse or you could have,
spouse. I think for some people, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, I think they project onto that safety. Maybe not control. Control in the sense of like, I imagine getting married one day and having a family, and
yeah.
so if I find my person, then I'll have controlled, my future the way I want.
Yes,
So
I mean,
maybe,
success kind, but like it may
yeah.
be that it's one of the things that makes it unique is it's one of the few things that really, the story that the world tells is that that it gives you all three of the biggest human needs.
Well, what's interesting that's just coming to my mind in this moment is it's also infinite, which
It's interesting.
like it's not real, so it's infinite. So there's a way in which it's a really easy thing for the ego to use as the like I need more of that, right? So
Yeah.
if the ego believes in scarcity, it's really easy to be like, I don't have enough money because how much do I need more, right? Like I joke to my wife often that like there's a formula for how many pairs of skis and bikes you need, and the formula is n plus one, where n is the number you have now. And, and that's kind of how we are. It's just, yeah, same for shoes. And it's kind of how we are with money. It's like, there's a lot of
You know where
memes
my
around
head's
this,
going right
but
now? This is
what?
interesting. Like this is some Dave Jesse insider stuff. We've been talking a lot recently because of Joe Hudson of how rather like when you have natural desires, whether they be love
Mm,
or success or sexual or whatever they are, he suggests that, and actually I was like looking at the six scriptures and they have a very similar
mm.
orientation of like, you have to follow them. That's part of your karma.
Like your authentic wants
Your
are
authentic wants
leading to your
versus we tend to
development
have
path.
like, I've gone through this like, oh, I shouldn't want money and I tend to resist it. And then you get stuck in this place versus if you actually chase it, you'll find over time that it's hollow. But the reason this came up around lust and I was like redoing all this chat GPT stuff with scriptures, it's like what you're actually feeling is your desire for God or for the one or for the universe. And
The
you kind
infinite.
of mistake. Well, that's when you said infinite, my mind went, oh, maybe money also. It's the closest.
Mm,
Like I'm not. I don't want to like offend anyone, including myself, but like it actually does share a lot of properties with God, with the universe.
mm,
Infinite.
mm,
It's the only other thing also that gives you all those three things. By the way,
mm, mm.
right? If you have
Interesting.
God in your life, you have like you don't, or they're the inside. It's almost maybe
Mm.
it's the perfect opposite of the inner versus the outer
That's interesting.
security, control, and approval. I don't know. It's
Right.
interesting.
Maybe that's why the like thou shalt not pray to false idols was like such a core principle, right? It's like the idol is we pray to the god of money. I
But
mean,
it tends to be a lot of, especially, I mean, you and I know a ton of founders, including myself. Like, it tends to be one of the most sought after things. It's also the biggest empty disappointment when it finally hits. And like you were going to the hedonic treadmill, but a lot of people end up going, well, I just must need more because
yeah, exactly. Right. That's the most common. Okay, I thought if I had whatever, a million, I'd feel it. Okay, I must need 10. I thought if I had 10, okay, I must need 50. And then that is the treadmill is it's like a drug. It's like, oh, the amount I thought I needed no longer or doesn't actually fulfill the whole, and therefore I must just need more and more and more and more. And that's the trap. And I want to, I like what you were going to around sourcing security, control, and approval from outside versus inside. I think maybe even more precise way to say it is letting go of the belief that there's any lack of security, control, and approval. Because if you get fully present and you really get curious, generally you can find that in this now moment, there is no lack of security, no lack of control, no lack of approval,
yep.
right? There's nothing missing or lacking. And that's the whole ego game is this sense of lack and that these are the ways that it expresses it, right? Oh, I don't have enough or I'm not safe, right? And it's like it's sort of security is in some way the easiest one. If you can't leave the present moment, right? Like if you couldn't leave your attention from the present moment, like you are safe. Like in this now moment, you're okay, you're alive. Even if in the next moment, you're gonna get, I don't know, shot or run over, or whatever's gonna happen. Like in this moment, you're totally fine, and then in the next moment, even if you died, like then you'd be dead, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
you find out what's
It's only
beyond
getting
life,
slightly
if
ahead of
anything.
yourself or slightly behind your like there's some example, I don't know if it was like you're torturing someone, like if you poked them with something, like in the moment you're feeling pain, then you stop feeling pain, and the thing that makes it so scary is like the anticipation of
About
the next
to,
moment or
yes,
remembering what just happened. It's
yeah.
not the actual thing in that moment. So if you had a client, and I'm sure you have lots of clients who walk in and they're like, I've made $100 million, Dave, and I still feel um, empty, scared, uh, not enough.
Unfulfilled, not whole, yeah.
Yeah. How do you coach that person? How would you coach him? How do you coach them?
uh Hold on, I'm imagining that scenario. um I'd probably take it one of two ways. One is as an opportunity for them to see that the stories that their mind makes up are not true. Like, okay, like what had you believe that you would feel fulfilled and whole once you made this money? And they'll generally see, well, I had the thought that that was it, and start to just unravel the mind, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the biggest causes of suffering is that it's not that we, the issue is not that we have a mind or a voice in our head or whatever you want to call it. It's that we believe it,
Right.
right? So that would be one path, is like, what else does your mind say that you're believing, and what's the impact of that on you? And that ultimately leads to the core belief, which is whatever comes after the words I am,
Hmm.
is this like core identity level belief. Oh, I am this, I am that. And I've done some workshops where we really look at identity, and the conclusion is anything after the words I am is just made up.
Right.
It's just a concept, and the deeper truth is simply I am.
Right.
And that's sort of conceptual too, but if you can feel the
That's what they say
sense
in
of
the Old
that,
Testament too, isn't it?
yes,
Isn't that the name of God?
I am that I am. Um, it's quite profound. And what I like about, like, I had heard that before and it just sounded kind of like spiritual or religious, like mambo jumbo, but there's something, mambo jumbo, yeah. There's something about the, just looking at what you actually say. I am a husband, I'm a father, I'm an entrepreneur, I am a millionaire, I'm a billionaire, right? It's like,
Right.
it's not I have, let's just, since we're on the topic of money, it's not, it's often not like I have $1 million, it's I am a millionaire.
Right.
Or I have a billion, as I am a billionaire. It's
Yeah.
like that's an identity level. That's who I am. I'm a
Yeah.
billionaire. Like,
Yeah.
and so that's
Some
interesting
people
just
like I
to
think
see.
Dustin Moskowitz has he's like pretty he writes a lot about how he's the steward of like he thinks of himself as the steward of the
Right.
money.
That's a
And
very different
that's like a
experience
different,
to
yeah,
have.
really
It's like,
healthy
oh,
framing.
this is flowing through me. What, how do I want to steward it?
Yeah.
So where that then leads is when you're, I mean, this is deep, so I wouldn't probably go there in the first session, but just since we're talking about this, basically you're saying, what do you do with someone who already has all the money and is like, shit, I got to the top of the mountain. I thought inner peace would be there. It's not. What do I do? Um, Essentially, it's a self-discovery process that leads to the realization that you are already whole,
Hmm.
and like the I am, who you really are, behind all the stories and concepts, is already whole and complete and worthy and free and safe.
And how does someone get there? Like,
um, I'm a big fan of what I have heard called the via negativa,
hmm
which is about removing what's in the way. Like,
hmm
similarly, for a similar reason, one of my favorite quotes is the Rumi quote, like, our task is not to seek for love, but to identify the barriers we've built against it. That, like, what's true is true, right? It's always true. It's
Yep.
just that we have a number of layers of beliefs and patterns that obscure us from experiencing the truth, including us, and especially the human mind, the ego mind, the voice in our head that we tend to identify with and as, and it itself creates like an identity, right?
Yep.
And so,
So try to figure out the things that are blocking you from knowing your whole. Could be
yes.
stories, mostly stories or
The words
beliefs, or
figure out feel a little off, but yeah, ultimately, yes. Identify,
try to
discover,
understand. Yeah.
understand what's in the way. There's some modalities like to look at, well, where did that come from? It can be useful to realize, oh, when I was 7, this thing happened, and I made up a story that I was unworthy, and so of course I'm seeking worthiness, or which was my experience. And so yeah, there are beliefs and basically defense patterns that get in the way. Like, I really like Joe Hudson often uses the notion of like living undefended.
Hmm.
I think there's a connection between, it's like the ego, the personality, they're all just defense mechanisms. And
Right.
as you remove those defense layers, what's left over is, I call it love. It's
Right.
essence. It's
I amness.
yeah, I am. It's, that's why there's,
It's interesting, right? Like the when you and I have done versions of this, it was like help. It was helpful
wait,
for me to.
can I interrupt for one
Yeah.
second? Um, because I'm just mindful of, this could all just be like, oh great, those are some more concepts that for the mind, like
hmm
and so what I just want to say, I think is really important, is it's not about even it's not about understanding, it's about directly experiencing that sense.
Right.
Like I'll ask my clients sometimes, like, just for now, could you relax as the one that is beyond wanting approval, security, and control,
Mm-hmm.
which I think comes from the Sedona method.
Yep.
So, and if they can, they'll viscerally feel like, oh wow, there's
Yeah.
some there's something in my being that already feels safe and free and worthy. So I no longer believe the lie that I have to attain anything in order to experience that.
Yeah. 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 That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, back to the story at the top, I told like intellectually, I could understand that there were people
Yeah.
who had less money than me who felt safer. And then it was like, let's try to feel that and agree to that. And I was like, oh, like, no, the idea, and you know, it's like losing money, losing what I had would feel like a threat to my safety and security. And And to your point,
Been
it's
there.
feeling. It's about feelings, right? It's about what it actually feels like in your
It
body and
is.
the sensations. It's not actually about what your brain tells you necessarily. Or it's easy to
And
get caught up in
look,
another mind trick of yourself
yes,
versus to actually drop in and
right. I should believe this, yeah, versus actually feel that felt sense of, wow, I am safe. And, you know, I try my absolute best to support people to have these shifts. And sometimes life is just more effective than, probably most of the time than me, or than
right,
like you can try to sort of an ounce of prevention, right? You can try to prevent the experience of, let's say, extreme reaction to a loss of money. You can try, right, by unhooking the belief that money is security,
yep,
by feeling your own sense of safety. I suspect very, very spiritual people could lose lots of money and, wouldn't bother them at all. For most of us humans, it might take losing a bunch of money, and that was my experience. And I've shared this
yeah. You want
before
to talk
that,
about
like,
it? Yeah, tell us.
yeah, I mean, it was, God, was it 21? I think it was 21. I was kind of riding high. Uh, I think tech was still doing well despite COVID. Crypto was up. I had a bunch of Solana that very gratefully received from coaching Anatoly, and um, so I was like, oh, hit my number, like I'm sitting pretty, and within like, and my buddy said, I think it was end of 20 or end of 21. He's like, I feel like things are really frothy, like I'm gonna sell everything, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe, and kind of ignored it, and then within weeks, I think it was weeks, maybe a few months, like dramatic crash in tech stocks and crypto. Many remember that. And so I think I lost like 70% of my paper worth,
Wow.
like massive amount. And I, like I was hard to breathe. I was like ashamed. I think I was mostly ashamed. Like I thought I was smart, thought I was smart. I've worked for an amazing hedge fund. I've made great investment. Like
Yeah.
I think it mostly hit my identity as a smart person, almost more than I mean, it was both
Is that
that and
approval, control, or security?
approval, worthiness. Yeah. Um, Although identity level stuff can feel like security too. Like, oh wait, who am I if I'm not
Mm.
smart?
Hmm.
Um, and also it was control because it was like I thought I was at this place in my life and like the next 10 years were going to look like this or 50 years, but now I'm at this other clearly way worse place, and so
Mm.
now it's going to be harder and struggle, and I can't believe how stupid I was and like why didn't I sell all that. But so there's all those thoughts, but like I was like punched in the gut, like hard to breathe, hard to be present. I remember we were away up at the lake, in this like cabin with friends, and I just couldn't even like interact with them. Must have been
Wow.
so annoying. I just kept talking about it, and and then I'll tell you what I did. Like I went for
Well,
a
and just hold on before
yeah,
we keep going. Like, and you've
sure,
been like meditating and being a coach and trying to find your
yes,
Zen for a decade at that point.
yes.
You've
That's a
done
great
all
point.
the
It's not like I was
modalities.
yeah. So there's a like you could say like I should have been able to handle it with all the prep or whatever, or at least I had a lot of training, and yet that the thing that actually, actually experiencing that was very impactful, and I was definitely in a state of threat and reactive. So I went for a bike ride, and I remember I just stopped at this bridge, and I was nauseous. Really, what I was like ashamed and scared, and it showed up as nausea. And not, I don't want to gross anyone out, but basically, like I just let whatever feelings wanted to come. I didn't actually like throw up or anything, but I almost like I felt like I was going to, and I didn't fight it. I just let that happen, and really felt all that like shame and nausea. It was not pleasant, but I at least the training, taught me like, okay, don't fight the feelings, like do,
Right.
allow it. And then on the drive home, I've told this story. My wife, God bless her, she's like, well, what do you love about yourself that has nothing to do with like your money and success? And I remember saying, just being like, well, I guess I'm just like a kind, fun-loving guy. And it was like a profound moment for me of like,
Hmm.
oh, what if that's enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of get chills even as I tell the story. It was like it was a real shift moment. Yeah,
For
almost
your
like
identity
tears
to
coming.
actually recognize that part of you.
Yeah, that like I I'm worthy. I'm worthy without the money.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I could have gotten there. Maybe I could have enough meditation and, spiritual connecting to sort of essence beyond any lack, etc. I don't know. But my path was actually losing all that money. It really it freed me up. It freed up that attachment. And now I'm able to make and lose a bunch of money. And yeah, I'd say like it's been a steady growth over the last number of years in my ability to, I'll just use the example, like look at my Coinbase account, go up and down by pretty significant, relatively significant amounts for me, and it basically no longer affects me, which
Right.
is pretty cool. Like to me, that's
Yeah.
growth. It's like if I'm moving from being a conditionally happy human to being an unconditionally happy or peaceful human, well, I've now largely removed a condition that previously was an absolute, like, strong, firm condition for my well-being.
And when you reflect on that, like, how do you see that you created that experience for yourself the most? Like, what were the top two or
Yeah.
three ways that you
Well,
created
that's
that?
interesting. By the way, before I answer, I don't want to overstate it either because like I recognize how privileged I am. We are, living in the US, family, having even after losing it, like it's not like I went to zero and had to sell my house and
Sure.
live on the street. And I do know people who have been homeless and have lived in their cars, and they have actually told me something similar. Like, I lived in my car, I was homeless, and I was like, not ideal, but like it was
Yeah.
okay. And I'm not trying to trivialize in any way homelessness, but the
Yeah, it's
visceral
liberating to
experience.
realize you don't need all that
Right,
stuff. I mean,
right.
this is a small version, but we were at a religious retreat this past weekend with the kids, and we stayed at La Quinta Inn, and it was like, I was like, this is what a 3-star like
Right.
property is, and they really didn't understand. I mean, they were like, there's no room, so and I was like, okay, but then part of it is we got through it, and it was like everyone was fine, like
Yeah.
you know, it,
Or camping. I feel that way sometimes when I go camping. I'm like, this is basically free. Like you'd be okay.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
a little cold in the winter. Um, okay, your question was,
How did you
do you remember?
create that? You went through this
Oh,
experience where you couldn't
jeez.
breathe and you like thought
Yeah.
your life was, you had this nausea. How did you create that for yourself?
Well, like write the recipe here. Like you're inviting me to take
I'm just yeah.
responsibility.
There's a thought behind the question for founders, but I'm curious. Just
Okay.
top two or three.
I mean, clearly I had a belief that having a certain amount of money meant that I was worthy and successful and free, and that having less money, meant that I wasn't. Um, I concentrated my wealth in a small set of highly volatile investments, right? I could have had it all in just the S&P index, and like, yeah, it would have been a
Right, right.
blip. which is interesting. That gets the whole nother thread. But what else? Those are probably the biggest ones.
I made up a story that like at some level you started, and the reason I brought it up because I think founders do this a lot with their companies is the saying is you start spending the money before it's in the bank, like before you have it. And because you said this comment earlier that you were like thinking your life was on one trajectory and it was on some level, because it's just
Oh
funny because
yeah, well
you and
that's
I talk
true.
about this offline, and I have this position in Figure that's theoretically worth, and in my brain it has not entered into any like,
Yeah,
it's almost the opposite problem. I'm like, I tell my financial advisor, I'm like, mark that at book.
it's,
I
yeah.
don't want to consider where it is because until it's here, like it's not real to me.
You know too much. Okay, so yeah, I mean, one of the things you know about me is for a long time, I had, I think, like 10K in checking plus, and would somehow every month be at like, negative $9,800. Like I would run it as close to the line as possible, which was like I had the money in investments, but I would just spend, and my philosophy, for better or for worse, has been to buy the most expensive house the bank will let me. So, because you live in it every day, and like that's so, it's fun to live in a nice house. Um, so yes, that those are other ways. Well, let's go deeper for a second because I think there's something interesting in my psychology or belief that I still see a little bit. I think the golden algorithm is in here somewhere. So I'll explain what that means in a second. But there's a way, like I'm so over allocated by any normal financial advisor's, efficient portfolio, whatever, toward illiquid private investments. Like you might even say I'm addicted to like angel and startup investing. Um, so why is that? Um, I think it's a little bit like a lottery ticket kind of like the one in me who believes that, only like a really inordinate amount of money will give me freedom
Yeah.
is like, well, I don't want to just have it grow and, even though I know compounding is a big thing, grow whatever 10% a year. Like I want to just boom, like have it, a big, huge win. And um, the I'll just share the goal. This again, credit to Joe Hudson. The golden algorithm is the idea that whatever feeling you're avoiding, you end up creating using the exact strategy you've employed to avoid it.
Hmm.
So if I map that onto this situation for me, I think it's like I don't want to ever feel trapped. So it's freedom ultimately. Like I don't want to ever feel trapped. I want to feel totally free. um, well, specifically avoid it. I don't want to ever feel trapped. So every time I get, extra money, I pile it into some illiquid private investment that I think might free me someday from the money, any kind of scarcity around money and end up feeling trapped. Like I have many months despite how successful my coaching business is and other like many months where I'm scrambling to like pay all the things that I need to pay. And like clearly it's completely self-created because I've just already invested all the money in privates and then my credit card come due. I'm like, "Oh God, where am I going to get the money to pay my credit card?" So I keep creating this feeling of like I don't have enough money in order to someday experience that I have enough money. So yeah, I'm I'm doing that, I think. But I think it's gonna work soon, Jesse. I think it's gonna work soon.
One day, this last one we just did.
Yeah,
Um,
there you go.
but I think for founder, I mean, I think that a very common sort of specifically around money failure pattern is, I think it's like counting your chickens before they've hatched, as the saying
Mm.
goes, and recognizing. And I think it's a really
The-
dangerous. I've seen a lot of founders get into situations where they go, including myself, when like the company's worth X, and this is
right.
I'm
Oh,
going to do
I'm
this,
worth
and I'm going to have
X, so
this,
I
and look at the
can.
houses on Zillow I'm looking at, and then the company's worth 30% less than what you thought, which is still an insane amount of money, and they walk away from it. I mean, there's these stories, especially with AI now hitting SaaS. It's like the
Right.
company's worth a lot, and you walked away from it, and anyway, I think there's something there vis-a-vis. It's where like money really specifically intersects with the founder journey, and
Mm.
you see a lot of very emotional decisions being made around money that are pretending
Yeah,
to
that
be rational choices.
there's a few thoughts coming up around that. One is as a scorecard, right? We have this absurd sort of culture in Silicon Valley, especially with AI companies now that like basically if your company is not worth over $1 billion, you haven't succeeded.
Yeah.
I mean, I am like laughing even saying it because it's so absurd. And yet, if you ask a bunch of founders, they would probably tell you, like, if they're really honest, they believe that. Um, which is, I mean, yeah, like what
It's
an
great. It's
absurd
great
little,
marketing and branding from the VC industrial complex.
sure, yes. Like what an absurd little microculture, right? Like if the other 8 billion humans in the world kind of got wind of that, they're like, what? Like, how is that even, most of the world lives on less than $2 a day. Like, how is
Yeah.
that, yours? So there's that whole like, and I think it's important that like valuation money, how much money the company is worth is somehow the scorecard of whether you were successful or not, which then is your scorecard for whether you're worthy or not. There's also I think it's worth just going to a moment on this notion of freedom because it feels on the face of it like isn't it obvious that more money gives you more freedom because it allows you to do more, buy more things and have more experiences that cost money, which of course is true. Um, what's interesting about that is a few things. One, like where does that end, right? Like, oh, I can get a G6 but only one, private jet, or I have a Netflix subscription but not my own jet. Oh, but I can't go on a rocket like, to the
Right.
moon like Bezos, so there's a way in which it's just a trap if you think that like your ability to buy anything is the only way you'll be free. You'll never be free. You
Right.
can't buy the earth, you can't buy the universe. It's like your mind could always use that to have you feel not free. There was a book called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist, and she made some comment like, "Isn't it more freeing to not need the things that money buy than to have enough money to buy everything you could possibly need?"
Right.
And again, what creates that is not making those external objects, even if or experiences, mean something about your safety, freedom, and worthiness. And again, I think the most important point that we've made here is that, like around freedom, is that freedom is a feeling,
Hmm.
and you could feel free in prison, and you could feel trapped in a mansion.
Yep.
It's a feel that's and it's not. I'm not saying that conceptually. I'm saying that's what you actually want, even more than wanting all the vacations and all the
Right. You're
houses. What you
chasing a
actually want is
feeling. You're
to
chasing a
feel free. You're
sensation.
chasing the feeling. Yeah.
And
Um,
when
and
you,
and so for founders, that's like they probably particularly value freedom. That's why they're founders, right? They stepped out of something that felt more constraining, like a corporate, job or environment, or chose not to do it. So they probably are disproportionately, we slash they are disproportionately kind of tilted toward or value freedom. And so I do think, because you made this point earlier of like, work the way most people can't for, won't for 3 years so that you live how they can't for. That's ultimately, I think, mostly about that sense of freedom that they're chasing. That
yeah.
like, if I shackle myself, I use that word purposefully, to my company for 3 years, then I'll be free for the rest of my life. Is
Right. And I
the
mean,
game?
I have a question, but the one there's a very common experience where founders sell their companies. They
Yeah.
get the said freedom. There was the founder of Loom who wrote that long post about how he's like, I sold my company, I made hundreds of millions, and I'm lost, and I have no idea what to do. And so that's a very common pattern you see where you get the freedom, and then you're like, what is this? I don't know what to do with
Right.
it.
I could do anything. I'm totally free, and I'm freaked out because I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And all I want is to have a structure, purpose, or some kind of constraint again, so I can feel not lost.
So when you identify this, I mean, that this is right, it's a feeling of freedom, and you're coaching
Yeah.
someone on that. How would you coach them to build more awareness around that feeling?
Mm. And by the way, we could do the same for security and worthiness. Um, I think one thing that's useful is to try to invoke the past. Like think of a time when you really felt totally free.
Mm-hmm.
If there's none, you could try to just imagine okay, imagine, great. you did it. You sold your company for $1 billion. You got the 600 million, probably not by that point, $300 million, in your pocket. Like you can buy anything you want. You never have to work a day in your life. Your interest alone is, $25 million a year. Like imagine you have it and like what does it feel like to be you?
Mm.
And so it's almost like you like flip it back, like you use like a ninja move or a jujitsu or something. Like you use the belief to get them to feel what they think it will feel like, and then notice you can feel that right now just by picturing it.
Right.
Right? Like the feeling, like it's like, where do you think the feeling is gonna come? It's not like you inhale it suddenly or like eat it, like
Yeah.
once you've made the money, like where did that feeling come from? It was already inside you. You just allowed it. And I think that's like a really subtle but profound notion. Like, where do you think the feeling's gonna come from? Like, it's
Yeah. Or
just,
I could imagine you saying like, well, what conditions are true for you to experience that feeling? And I imagine myself, I'm like, well, I'm sitting in a nice hotel room or a nice comfortable bed. I'm not needed by anybody. I can do anything. I have the feeling I can do anything I want. And you start to actually go, oh, so like freedom for you is X, Y, and Z. Like, could you feel that tomorrow if you wanted to? And the answer, of course, is yes. For most, most founders especially. And it's like, okay, just get
or
more
or
thoughtful
right
about,
now.
yeah, or
Forget
even now.
tomorrow. Yeah. And I've been fond of thinking of it like we have this want for a feeling. Let's just stay with freedom because that's our example. What's been coming up for me lately around it is okay, I want to feel freedom. What if that want is actually like the freedom part of you crying out for attention? Right? It's like if I haven't felt free in a long time, one way to look at that is like I've been ignoring the aspect of myself that is free and feels free. And so the reason that want arises is because that aspect of myself wants, it's like, give me some attention,
Right.
right? So I think that's a useful frame because it highlights the fact that it's not out there to attain. It's like the the feeling you want already has that feeling in it. It's like the feeling calling out to be
Right.
felt.
It's almost like you haven't let yourself be free enough, and therefore you're now craving this thing called freedom.
Yeah. Or yeah. So like I almost think of like a U-turn. Like hold on, follow that want back to its source, and what you find is it's freedom. It's a feeling of freedom that is wanting you to experience it.
Experience it. Yeah.
Almost like a gravitational pull or something.
Yeah.
Again,
I love it.
it's
Well, we're wrapping up here. How should we wrap this episode up?
um let's see. I would just invite you, reader, listen, not, I guess not reader, you listener, to, I guess reader, if you're reading the transcript, to ask yourself, what do you make money mean that it doesn't mean?
Mm. And that's a great place to start for asking this question. All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. That was
All
fun.
right. Bye.